Alrighty, we're looking at the 1040 and 1040 SR instructions from the IRS website, irs.gov, and you search for 1040 instructions. We're looking at the tax year 2022 based on my experience. If you read the instructions, it's kind of self-explanatory, but let's go ahead and step right into it. Here we go. If you scroll down a little bit and you look at the table of contents, here we go. Here's the what's new. This is the information that is different from the prior year that the IRS wants you to know, wants you to key on, wants you to make sure that you understand this is what's new. So let's go ahead and look at page 6. Page 6, here we go. We've got some really interesting information. Let's go start the due date of the return. File form 1040 or 1040 SR by April 18th, 2023. The due date is April 18 instead of April 15 because of the Emancipation Day holiday in the District of Columbia, even if you don't live in the District of Columbia. Ooh, that's good. We got to make sure we know the due date of the return. All right, let's look at the filing status name change to qualifying surviving spouse. The filing status qualifying widow or widower is now called qualifying surviving spouse. The rules for the filing status have not changed. The same rules that applied for qualifying widower apply to the qualifying surviving spouse. See qualifying surviving spouse later. Ooh, that's some good information. So they're changing the wording of the qualifying widower to surviving spouse. That's some good information here. All right, let's move on. The standard deduction amount increased. Okay, we have for 2022, the standard deduction amount has been increased for all the filers. The amounts are single or married filing separately, $12,950. Ooh, that's a big increase here. The married filing jointly or qualifying surviving spouse, there we go. We have the surviving spouse instead of qualifying widow or widower. That is $25,900. Okay, we got a little bump there. Okay, and then finally the last status here is the head of household, $19,400. Ooh, that's a little bit of bump there. That's pretty good. IRS letting us know, hey, their standard deduction amounts have increased for the year, so we got to make sure we include those amounts. Alrighty, the new lines A, 1A through 1Z on Form 1040 and 1040S. This year, line 1 is expanded and there are new lines 1A through 1Z. Some amounts that in prior years were reported on 1040 and Form 1040 SR are now reported on Schedule 1. Ooh, they're mixing up the lines here. This is good information. This is good information. Scholarship and fellowship grants that were not reported to you on Form W2 are now reported on Schedule 1, Line 8R. Okay, so they're changing where we're reporting the scholarships and fellowship grants that were not reported on W2. Okay. The pension or annuity from a non-qualified deferred compensation plan or a non-governmental Section 457 plan are now reported on Schedule 1, Line 8T. Okay, so they're changing where we're reporting that. That's good, that's good. Wages earned while incarcerated are now reported on Schedule 1, Line 8U. Ooh, that's a unique situation, but I'm sure there's people that are incarcerated and have wages that are enough to be reported, so gotta let them know that's going to be changing. Okay, that's some good information. So they're changing the lines 1A through 1Z. They're adding that in, expanding line 1. There we go. All right, what do we got? We got new line 6C on Form 1040 and 1040 SR. A checkbox was added on line 6C. Taxpayers who elect to use a lump sum election method for their benefits will check this box. See line 6C later. Okay, now they got a new line 6C. Okay, that's good to know. Non-taxable Medicaid waiver payments on Schedule 1. For 2021, non-taxable payments of Medicaid waiver payments reported on 1040, line 1, let's scroll up, were excluded from income on Schedule 1, line 8 Z. For 2022, non-taxable amounts will now be excluded on Schedule 1, Line 8S. Okay, so they're changing that up. That's good to know. That's good to know. Non-taxable combat pay election for 2021. Individuals elected to include their non-taxable combat pay in their earned income when figuring the Earned Income Credit, the EIC, by reporting it on Form 1040 or 1040 SR, line 28B. For 2022, they will make this election by reporting non-taxable combat pay on Form 1040 or 1040 SR, line 1I. Okay, so they're changing that. That's good. That's good. Credits for sick and family leave for certain self-employed individuals are not available. Ooh. Self-employed individuals could no longer claim these credits. Oh no. Well, got to make sure you don't claim those credits if you're self-employed. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Health coverage tax credit is not available. The health coverage tax credit was not extended. The credit is not available after 2021. Whoa, that's not good. I know that was a good credit that people enjoyed. Credit for child and dependent care expenses. The changes to the credit for child and dependent care expenses implemented by the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the ARP, were not extended. For 2022, the credit for the child and dependent care expenses is non-refundable. The dollar limit on qualifying expenses is $3,000 for one qualifying person and $6,000 for two or more qualifying persons. The maximum credit allowed is 35% of your employment-related expenses. For more information, please see the instructions for Form 2441 and Publication 503. All right, well, that's a little. I know a lot of families enjoy the child and dependent care expenses and the credit that's related. Okay, but they're changing that, and that's what we need to move forward with in 2022. Child tax credit. An additional child tax credit. Many changes to the child tax credit implemented by the ARP were not extended. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. For 2022, the initial credit amount of the CTC is $2,000 for each qualifying child. The amount of CTC that can be claimed as a refundable credit is limited as it was in 2020, except the maximum additional child tax credit, the ACTC, amount has increased to $1,500 for each qualifying child. A child must be under the age of 17 at the end of 2022 to be a qualifying child. Bona fide residents of Puerto Rico are no longer required to have three or, let's scroll up, more qualifying children to be eligible to claim the ACTC. Bona fide residents of Puerto Rico may be eligible to claim the ACTC if they have one or more qualifying children. Oh, so they're changing the requirements for bona fide residents of Puerto Rico. That's interesting. Okay. For more information, see the instructions for Schedule 8812, Form 1040. Okay, that's a little bit changing, but people will need to get used to it. Changes to the Earned Income Credit, the EIC. Ooh, this is one that I know a lot of taxpayers look at and anticipate. The enhancements for taxpayers without a qualifying child that applied for 2021 don't apply for 2022. This means to claim the EIC without a qualifying child in 2022, you must be at least age 25 but under 65 at the end of 2022. If you are married and filing a joint return, either you or your spouse must be at least 25 but under 65 at the end of 2022. It doesn't matter which spouse meets the age requirement as long as one of the spouses does. Oh, so they're changing the earned income tax credit without a qualifying child. Okay, that's interesting. Reporting requirements for Form 1099K. Form 1099-K is issued by third-party settlement organizations and credit card companies to report payment transactions made to you for goods and services. You must report all income on your tax return unless excluded by law, whether you received the income electronically or not, and whether you received a Form 1099-K or not. The Box 1A and other amounts reported on Form 1099-K are additional pieces of information to help you determine the correct amounts to report on your return. If you received a Form 1099-K that shows payments you didn't receive or is otherwise incorrect, contact the Form 1099-K issuer. Don't contact the IRS. The IRS can't correct an incorrect Form 1099-K. If you can't get it corrected or you sold a personal item at a loss, see instructions for Schedule 1, lines 8Z and 24Z later for more reporting information. All IRS information about Form 1099-K is available by going to irs.gov/1099K. Okay, well, those are some really good, interesting tips and hints. Things they changed. Let's see if they have anything else on the next page. They do not, but let's see. That is some really interesting information. So they're changing the date of the return, the filing status name change for qualifying surviving spouse, the standard deduction. They're adding and expanding lines 1. They're new line 6C. They're also changing up the non-taxable combat pay election, credits for sick and family leave for self-insured, health coverage and tax credits not available, credits for child and dependent care expenses, child tax credit and additional child tax credit is changing, earned income credits changing, and the Form 1099-K changing. So to wrap it up, if you have kids or you're changing your status or you're even just filing a return, they're changing things up. They got new things happening at the IRS per the IRS instructions 1040. And if you could just go to irs.gov/1040, you can read the instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory, but hopefully this helps.